All right, I gotta go get that off the other screen. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is the Roads and Right of Ways Committee meeting for Tuesday, December 19th. We're doing a hybrid session for Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. All attending will be asked to identify themselves, which they have. The names are on the screen. Those that have joined us via Zoom, if you will keep your mic muted so that the background noise doesn't permeate the meeting. There's nobody from the general public here, but if so, we will bring them in and let them know what's going on. Because we are doing a hybrid session, we'll have to do a roll call and votes for every item that we take votes on. So, and I will note we have Mike Burns, the transportation director, is on, and we have our new DPW director, and he's in the room, and I'll let him introduce himself in just a moment. So first thing is a roll call. Alan Reinhardt.
Here.
Lee Saperstein.
Here.
Rick Atherton.
Here.
Matt Lowell is absent. Phil Smith.
Here.
Nelson Eldridge.
Yeah.
Ed Gillum is absent. Rob Rainey. He's on the phone. We see him there.
Yeah.
Just wave, Rob. All right. So let's cut right into the meeting. Public comment. There is nobody from the public here that I can see. So I'd like to introduce Andrew, the new DPW director.
Thank you.
And
That's here.
the record, Lee, just so for the record, Nat Lowell has entered the premise along with Elvis.
Elvis. Lee, England.
So go ahead, Drew, tell us a bit about yourself and welcome.
Sure, we're going. So my name is Drew Patno, I'm the Director of Public Works since the end of July. But I've lived on island for almost 7 years, so I come from a consulting engineering background, so nice to come into a position with a lot of understanding and history of Nantucket. I've been cross paths with Nat over the years. Nice to have a couple of familiar faces in the meeting. Happy to be here. I don't know how often I'll be able to make it, but I'll certainly always try to do my best to be present. I know that there's a number of agenda items, and I'm sure that's constantly growing that, you guys coordinate with DPW to get things done. So look forward to work with you guys.
So I sent Drew the rolling roads and roadways project list that we've been updating, and I flagged things that we had identified as relating to the DPW. And the way we started updating this is we have dates when the last update was, and it's noted at the end of, you want a copy of this?
Yeah, my computer's going haywire. Do you have a hard copy?
Yeah.
I mean, I have it up on my phone, but
Oh, okay. So you can have
a little easier. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Since I didn't print up two, we'll have to rely on you to keep me right away because I get it highlighted. So anyhow, the thought is that as there are updates, we'll put that update on there, put a date when that update was made. And our real goal is to be able to take stuff off the list. And with all of the, thank you, with all of the, I don't want to say turmoil, but changes and stuff we're going on with DPW, we've sort of fallen behind in what we were thinking of doing and what we have to do. So there are a couple of things that did get flagged, and the DPW was going to be scheduling some work to be done, and you'll see that on that list there. For example, 5155 Belvedere Ave in Surfside. That was a section that there's a public way there, actually, our distant relation to Davy Crocker is Alan. He was out scurrying through the bushes and stuff. He's with the land bank and stuff, and he came across right-of-way monument that was put in way back. And so we did some research on that, and looking at the past documents, when that was acquired, the town agreed not to cut the brush back and make it a public way to the beach, or at least to the bluff. And that was a relationship that was worked out with the abutter that was there. And then with part of the one big beach, that was all incorporated, and so we're at a point now where we were thinking that brush needs to be opened up. And it's certainly, there's no access down to the beach, but it's a viewing area. And so the belief is that the town's already got the required survey stuff and knows where the bounds are and stuff. So and that was brought to our attention actually by some residents out there that are trying to maintain public access. Down the street a little bit, I think it's down at 41. There's construction going on there, and the wandering way sort of meandered onto some property, and people that are doing some work there. That's supposed to be resolved, and so we need to follow up with that to see where that goes, because it's not a DPW issue. It was taken over by the folks that were doing the work.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
Would it make sense, is it Drew? You go by Drew?
Yep.
Would it make sense for you to go through that, take a look at it? I get my copy of it, Bill. If you wanted to ask any question, maybe come to the next meeting, say, hey, what do you mean by this? What is this all about?
Yeah.
Whatever. And I think also, if you say, yeah, I don't think this is a DPW thing, because sometimes we think it's something and it's not. And there's no sense us merrily going along thinking you've got it on your to-do list and you say, well, that's not really a DTW thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're definitely catch-all for everything. That's not.
Okay, but I mean, maybe if there's some things, it might be a worthwhile thing for you
Yeah, no,
at the next time, just to come and say, hey, what do you mean by 2, 4, and 5 here on this?
yeah, no, I think generally speaking, we're happy to help, and yet these things end up kind of, you have opinions or interest from different departments and things. I certainly not up to speed. Well, I was saying I've been here for years. I know the history of a lot of projects. I don't know the history of all these, saying that like the bounds have been recovered, like who did the survey? Is that laid out somewhere?
Yeah.
It is brush cutting season. We're happy to go do stuff like that.
Yeah.
We just can't just go willy-nilly,
No,
just
right,
charge
right.
forward and just assume that, what looks good to our eye is the right
Yeah.
thing to do.
And so, and if you want one of us to come out and meet you at a site or whatever, and we certainly can do that, and that'd be helpful for you if you want to do that.
Sure.
It's the same with we're going to talk a little bit later on about the Sconset Bluff walk, and there's some monuments that were not installed there. The side issue is there's two kinds of monuments. There's the uprights and then the flat ones. And our supply of flat ones have probably in somebody's walkway turned upside down so you can't see public way on them, but they no longer exist behind two fairgrounds.
Yeah.
But we've identified some places where it's time to put those in. And it's a project that's been ongoing and lingering for quite some time.
Yeah.
The bluff has gotten a lot of attention recently, especially by the abutters, asking the town to tighten up stuff.
Mhm. We actually just installed 2 signs for the Wisconsin Civic Association. So there were existing signs, we just put new ones on, they have kind of champions.
But that was the rule to walking.
Yeah, I think it does, it's just a better version of giving people a map of like where to
Yeah.
enter and exit and where not to enter and exit. Kind of give them the lay of the land.
So as you can imagine, that took, to get that all approved with all the hoops and stuff, that took a year.
Yeah, no, I think that's taken a while.
It went through the sign committee and
Yeah.
and everything else, and so at least they're seeing some progress.
But there's also the issues of encroachments there. So
Yeah.
Later.
Bill,
Yeah, Lee?
could I ask Drew, his reactions to, engaging to the DPW, priorities and things like that?
In terms of this committee,
Yeah, just, a general perspective on, what it's like to sit in the hot seat.
it's a good open-ended question. Yeah.
Might not be.
No, it's good. Like I said, as far as, doing things like brush cutting to create public access to the beach or putting up monuments. Even the signs we put up for Wisconsin Civic Association. I think the general overarching consensus around DPW is we're happy to help. We may not run right out there and get it done. We have our own priority list and everything. Everybody wants everything done yesterday. But those signs, for example, there was a 25 mph thickly settled sign that needed to go on New Street. We've got other work in the area, so Sylvia had the signs for a couple weeks, and when he went out to Wisconsin, he did both when he was out there. We try to remain efficient with what we do. So but like I said, the biggest thing is we're happy to help. Doesn't necessarily mean we can drop what we're doing, but we have the resources and we'll certainly do our best to get to it. If that answers your question.
It helps. Thank you, Drew.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, can I just
Yeah.
quickly,
What?
first of all, Drew, thank you for being here.
Sure.
You have a head start with your previous job, even though you aren't from here and all that. You kind of have a pretty damn good head start. And you're in your,
Oh, no.
and you're in your early 40s, which is scary.
I'm not even
Scary.
40.
You're not even 40, I thought you were early 40s, that's even better. Wow, that's
Amazing.
scary, that's even really scary. So something came up, I think it was 2 meetings ago, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, about the role of this committee as far as like sidewalks and all this other stuff. When was that, 2 meetings ago?
Last meeting, actually.
Yeah,
Was it the last meeting? I thought it was.
well,
the
it's
meeting
come
before
up
that.
several times and
All right,
yeah, it's
So-
a rolling, it's like everything else, a rolling question.
so with you being new meaning in the title, but not new.
Yep.
Like just showed up yesterday, because if you just showed up yesterday, I wouldn't be able to talk about this. Because it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Like you have to I have to take it for a walk or something, which I gotta still do.
Yeah.
So when the select board created the first street and sidewalks committee, that was back when Kara was here. I think actually it was before her, or the first one. Alan knows all this stuff. Correct me, Alan, if I'm wrong about anything, like could be off a little bit. And it was when the sewer phase 1, downtown, clay tile removal, etc. So since then, things have changed a lot. We have bicycle pedestrian advisory committee. Traffic safety is always sort of moving and shaking and kind of like that's Libby's committee that's not appointed by the select board. And then you have us that's sort of concentrating on rights of way. The paper street program helped this committee do a lot of things, and that stuff is still happening with one of those ones, and I just don't know which one it is. Bill brought up, I just don't know the number. Okay. and Mike's on this meeting like Burns, and that's important, because I want to say a few things. I personally, there is a lot of crossover. Okay, so we got BPAC taking responsibility a little bit for the figuring out what to do about e-bikes.
Mhm.
Okay. E-bikes are on the sidewalks. We used to talk about sidewalks. Improvements, now all of a sudden, they're all getting fixed downtown with $1 million a year program. But we don't really talk about them anymore, like we did, and then we don't. Like, I think we need to have somewhat of a reset in this conversation, because I get, my position in planning for forever, it seems. Like NPDC really doesn't have a say in this stuff either. It's sort of like everybody's got like a little say, but not a say.
Yeah.
And I think with someone like you that knows what's going on under the streets of Nantucket, which is amazing, by the way, okay? What goes on above the streets and improvements, I saw a couple things we just did that I should have taken pictures and sent you. I'm big about fixing stuff without it looking like somewhere else.
Yeah.
There's ways to fix things here without it looking like the mainland. But if you don't do it when you're already working, you might as well set your staging up, fix your roof, and the chimney needs repointing, and we're gonna get that later. Take all the staging back down and never do nothing. I hate that. Like, I am like, I feel like I'm alone in that way of thinking. So with someone new like you that's coming in, I think there needs to be an emphasis on, okay, we've got this program with redoing the sidewalks. Mike used to be involved in putting bike poop things in from Remain. What are we doing? We're gonna fix this parking space and make more space. There's all kinds of things. This hydrant moving thing that I've already talked to you about, that's hopefully gonna happen someday, because there's like 3 of them that need to get moved to make more parking in a loading zone. That will work for 5 restaurants in one stop. But where do we fit? Like, I don't know. I've been on this committee for almost 20 years. Actually, it is 20. And it's hard to explain it. I don't blame anybody. I don't blame anybody for anything. I just know that it's changed a lot. Just by itself. Nobody said, well, you're not responsible anymore for this. This is my job. Nobody's saying that.
Yeah.
Nobody is, but it sort of happened by itself. And when Bill brought that up one meeting ago, I thought it was 2. I knew right away what the answer was gonna be with that, because it's sort of like not our purview, but it was.
Yeah.
We had the encroachment policy that Joe Mockinger redid. That was requested by town manager, wasn't it? Alan?
Yeah, well, we put in the
No,
request.
I thought she asked you to do something with that or something. I remember this. Because there was a lot of strange encroachments on Nantucket. There's some that need to be left alone and there's some that don't. Depends on where it is. We start cutting back everybody's bushes and sprinkler systems and rocks, and it'll be a war, okay? But there are some things that we need to be doing with that.
Mhm.
We got more rocks on the side of the road than we do with the jetty. But anyway.
Yeah,
so-
we've been tackling.
it's pretty bad, especially,
recently.
there's a lot of them now,
Yeah.
I don't know where they're getting all the rocks from, but there's certainly, somebody's got them. Because it's
Yeah.
amazing, but, so I just think that with somebody, late 30s, I can't believe it. That's scary, you're gonna be here for a long time, I love it. So,
Yeah,
and you coach too,
I do.
that's, phew, God, this is great. So, I think Bill will agree with me, I think everybody will agree that we need to kind of find a new way to include BPAC, include traffic safety. In any of the things that cross over, I'm not saying everything, I'm saying there's
Yeah.
certain things that do cross over into other people's purview. That really isn't technically theirs 100%, but this happened last night at Planning Commission.
Yeah.
BPAC is doing a fantastic job. It's the greatest thing we ever did was create that committee. Because they're focusing on certain specific things that we need to be looking at, but it does cross into DPW. It does cross into Chapter 90 stuff, how we do roads. We want to make the shoulders wider on certain roads to accommodate more of these bikes. I mean, there's a whole bunch of questions that come out of these things.
Yeah.
And this committee fits into some of the stuff too, when it comes to like Quidnet Road is not taken by the town correctly. There's all sorts of open parts of that plan. There's a lot of stuff here that is crazy. It makes no logical sense at all, but it's true. And you're gonna be here for a while, and I just wanted to bring that stuff up, because Mike's on the meeting, and Lee remembers all the stuff, and Alan remembers it, just about everything. And the first bicycle, almost, his first job. And, I mean, it's just important to have a new, fresh start with
Yeah.
someone like you, who really has a role in all of it.
Yeah, and
You have a role in everything.
And I guess my take on that, right, is like, and tell me if I'm wrong, is, you have committees and work groups.
Yeah.
And then commissions. And they have different roles and different authorities.
Yeah,
And ultimately, yes,
Exactly.
and it's.
if we have a roadway project, you guys will be interested in the right of way and public access to stuff. Traffic safety is gonna be worried about speed and signs and road markings and traffic flow and. BPAC's gonna say, well, what about the bicycles, pedestrians? And HDC is gonna be worried about, the historical aspect of. Ultimately, not that I need to add more to my plate, but this is how I view my role, is to pull all of those together. And
Exactly.
ultimately work with our departments to make the best decision and move it forward. I think it'd be naive to think that every project we do or everything we do is gonna make everybody happy. And at times. I've already quickly realized that, there's a lot of competing interests and ideologies, so. We need to make sidewalks better, but we can't cut down these trees and
Right.
this and that, so there's.
Yeah.
With that being said, inevitably either something's gonna happen and someone's gonna leave unhappy, or we're not gonna be able to change things.
Yeah.
And so it's important for us to communicate, me and Mike and Holly, preservation planner and other departments. And pull everybody's interest together as we try to accomplish things. That's how I see my role.
Because the way we do things now, they're putting concrete in every curb. It ain't like it's gonna get fixed again. It's like kind of like permanent now. They take that concrete, pour it in, dump the curb into the cement. Somewhat permanent. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it can't ever be taken out.
Yeah,
I didn't
it's
say
not-
that,
nothing's
but
permanent.
it's not like
We'd like it to
it's
be.
not like it's in sand anymore.
Yeah.
That's all, saying.
Did you say that's a good thing or bad thing?
I'm not, you know what?
It's different.
I don't think it needs to be done where vehicles aren't driving on it, but
Yeah.
that's my opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm more worried about doing the fixes while we're there, ripping stuff up.
Right.
That's my big thing.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in do it right the first time.
Alan,
Considering the cost of everything, I think it's important.
you want to say something, Alan?
Yeah, I'll be quick.
Sure.
One of the things that I've discovered about the EW is that as you've just described, you have a very broad range of responsibilities. You deal with the cemetery commission and the 9 town cemeteries. You deal with all the other things you just mentioned. The thrust of the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee has been for public access. We deal with public access issues. And in the mind of the committee, over the years, we did a sidewalk survey of all the downtown sidewalks and so on. We went street by street, number by number, the condition of the sidewalk. As a result of that, we got $5 million set aside in the town budget to deal with the sidewalks downtown. Now, my question for you is, are you involved with the planning that is involved? For example, the Rotary. We've been talking about replacing the Rotary for years. In fact, there's a plan for it.
Yeah.
At Orange Street.
Yeah,
Yeah, move it forward.
yeah.
No,
Yeah. And now is that, I know that actual work that gets done, you contract that out and you're essentially responsible for it. What other types of things like that come under your purview?
So interestingly enough, Mike and I
coordinated
had,
review,
what's that?
coordinated review type stuff.
Yeah, so that's actually a state highway asset, so Mass
Exactly,
DOT is leading the charge on doing that design. Mike and I met with, I think 6 DOT folks came out, we went and checked out. Bunker Road all the way back to the Rotary, the condition of the pavement,
Mhm.
potential widening,
Not wide, enough, it's 20 feet, ridiculous.
talked about potential widening, let me
Yeah.
finish.
Got wide early on.
the rotary, it's that currently exists at Orange and Old South and Milestone, but also a future rotary at Nobody Farm.
Yeah.
And how that works. Now, again, they have this whole process. If they want to go make improvements, they have to do an analysis and say, does stop signs work? Does streetlights work? Does this work? Does that work? And sometimes, especially out here, more of a formality. We
Yeah.
know where our restrictions are and they understand that too, and they're willing to work with us. No, but they have to go through that process, check up the
Has
boxes.
to do it anyway.
Things move slow at the state level. They have to, get funding, and Mike's been working a lot with them to get the project submitted. And then they work in the review, they work in the design, we'll go back and forth constantly for the review, and that's what we're doing right now at Pulpus and Milestone. To do those intersection improvements and run the bike path from
Yeah.
Monomoy out to where the Pulpus bike path comes behind Island Lumber.
Correct. That's it.
Yeah.
You got it.
I don't know why Island Lumber sounded wrong.
No, that's right.
Right.
Where everybody slams on their brakes for nothing.
Yeah,
Slams on them.
so we have a hand in that stuff. It's kind of
Yeah.
nice that DOT takes the lead on it and manages all that stuff. We basically just get almost like vetoing power. We get our input and then we say this works, this doesn't work for X, Y, Z.
Right.
And they are good about that and listening to our community's needs, wants and how it works. We do have a lot of other transportation projects that we spearhead. So whether that starts in Plus at, with Mike, or at some point, it's kind of like the planning obviously starts with them, and then once it gets through design, kind of comes to DPW to implement and follow through on the construction. When it goes back to the sidewalks, Beta Group is an engineering firm that did all of the pavement assessment. They do it like every couple of years for the town. So they have been for a couple of years. They did all the bike paths, they did all the sidewalks. So we have a dashboard that shows every sidewalk. And they did a condition assessment. We actually just signed an amendment to have them put dollars to it. So we gave them Victor's contract and it says, if we're gonna replace, like we're doing right now, Center Street from India to Maine, it's X amount of square yards, it's X amount of linear feet of curbing, put a dollar to it, and it helps us plan. Additionally, there's a lot to it. We can't always just go worst to first. And there's things I'd love to do tomorrow that are gonna get dug up for a sewer project or for lead water
There you
service
go.
replacement and things. So we're working on, and it's great that I have a relationship with David and Mark
Yeah.
at Sewer and Water. And so I understand what their capital plans are, and thus it kind of drives our capital plans. I'm not gonna pave a road that's gonna get dug up next year, and same with the sidewalk, et cetera. But not to get way too out of ourselves on this, but there's a lot of really good asset management software. And we have all this data. We have streetlights, we got signs, we have road markings, we have all the pavements, everything. It's kind of all in different places. And the sewer is in a different place, water's in a different place, and we have all that GIS data, it's just in a bunch of different platforms. So we're working on getting a program that we as a town can put everything in one place. I can edit the DPW stuff, David can edit the sewer stuff, and Mark can edit the water stuff. But if I'm planning to pave a road, I can click on Mark's water main and it might say fiscal year 27 replacement. Well, I'm not gonna pave it in fiscal year 25 and rip it up 2 years later. So it'll help streamline things, but there's a lot that goes into that coordination. But it's paramount that we plan appropriately.
So Snooky actually has something that he was gonna bring up, that's and it's probably a good time to bring it up now,
Yeah.
because Mike's on here also. Snooky?
Carl Jellamy submitted a letter to Mike Burns asking the town to put a roundabout
Yeah.
or a right-hand turning lane at Milestone and Nobodere Farm Road. Well, I don't think he understood that they can't do the roundabout because it's a state highway.
Oh, okay.
But
Turning lane can't happen either,
why not?
because we got a dumb bylaw we passed in the late 90s. Anything in the country overlay can't have a traffic improvement. And the only reason we got the one in at, before anyone asks, the only reason we got the one in at Airport and Old South, is because it's by a whisker on the inside of the country overlay district. We got that, Richmond paid for that.
Mike, you got your hand up? And then Lee?
Mike will give the real story, but I know I'm right, but he'll do a better job explaining it.
That That's correct on that. We did submit that intersection along with the Milestone Rotary and the roadway improvements to the widening of Milestone Road from the Rotary to Bunker Road. Submitted those to Mass DOT to initiate those projects, essentially get them into the pipeline for design and ultimately construction. And those were approved. So we did submit the scope of the Nobody Farm Road project as reconstruction to a roundabout. So that's what we're going forward with as the preferred alternative. How this advances, I guess that's the subject of future meetings, but just want to let you know that all three of those projects have been approved by DOT. They're initiated in the pipeline, and the roundabout configuration was the one that's being advanced with DOT at Nobody Farm Road.
No, with that being said, we did do site visits with them, and I think it does make sense. Their intent, Mike, tell me if I'm wrong, their intent would be to do the intersection and roundabout improvements, so Pulpus, Novadear, Orange, Rotary, do the rotaries, and then you would come through and do the widening and overlay of Milestone full, not full length, but from Bunker back to the Rotary after the fact to tie all the intersections in together. And so that's part of it, is their design, construction, and testing of those projects is still kind of a little yet to be seen, but that's our understanding.
Lee?
Yeah.
Lee?
I want to ask Mike a follow-up
Okay, Lee?
clarification.
Hi, Lee, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, Bill. Drew, I'm sitting here in London, the home of roundabouts. I can reach out free-flowing mini roundabouts to the Richmond Circus, which is traffic light controlled for 5 or 6 roads all coming into one big roundabout. But leave that alone. What I want to offer is that I believe that this committee can continue to be your sounding board, particularly if you need to tell the state, we've consulted with a citizens group and here's what they say. And so I'm saying to you and to Bill, let's schedule as frequently as possible discussions of capital projects where we can lend our sometimes very mixed up, big word, heterogeneous voice. We don't speak with one voice, but out of all that may come some valuable input to you, not the least of which is to tell the state, yes, we've checked with the citizens. And for my colleagues on Roads and Right-of-Way, Drew and I have met, and I shared with him that I am a licensed professional engineer. Unfortunately, given the state's control of licensure, I'm not licensed in Massachusetts, so I'm just another voice. I don't have a PE stamp that says Massachusetts on it. Now, should we desire Kentucky, Missouri, or Pennsylvania, I can stamp all your documents.
Andy? Andy. Matt?
Oh, sorry, Mike, you mentioned Pulpus. I thought we were getting. They're realigning the sort of the whatever we call the thing we have there now.
The triangle.
The triangle.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, was fixed once, because it used to be 2 little things.
Took out the little road.
That little thing, you remember
I
that?
remember that.
Jeez, what was it, 25 then? All right, that was a little bit ago. So, Mike, I thought we had to avoid the roundabout idea, we were gonna have the space to people to pass while they wait to bail left at Island Lumber. I thought that's what the state agreed to.
For that particular intersection, that's going to be a T intersection.
Okay, perfect. No. I might have heard you wrong. That's why I'm checking. I don't like people to go crazy over something that isn't really necessary here. The roundabout at Novadear is the one that needs to happen.
Yeah, and
That
just because you brought up Pulpus Road, I'll just note that we will have a public informational meeting on that intersection. At least Mass DOT will be sponsoring a public informational meeting at the end of January. So
January 25th, I believe at 6 o'clock.
correct. So just a heads up on that one.
And
And
Mike, you just tell this group too, something that they may not know, I may have brought it up. I don't know, if I did or not, but beta, whatever the name is, how do you pronounce that?
Beta.
Beta, all right. What was the Old South Corridor program before COVID? That gentleman that was given that presentation was the one that came up with that roundabout for nobody. I never thought of it. That guy did. And since then, it's been sort of in the back of everyone's mind, but a lot of other things were in front of that in the queue per se, but it's definitely a great thing. And I'm glad Kyle brought that up, but it wasn't his technically idea, but I'm glad he reinvigorated the idea. You know, so anyway, I just wanted to make that point because that was brought up prior to, you know, COVID and all kinds of other things.
So while we have both Mike and Drew here, one of the things that's on our list that we're following is the Perry Street, Gardner Perry Lane to William Street. And I think Mike gave us that update back
On the sidewalk.
back in July. So just for a running list here, if you could bring us up to speed on what that is, so we can trim down this paragraph that we have listed. And whether Mike or Drew wants to go forward, probably Mike, because it's still, I think, on the drawing board. So Mike?
Sure. You're referencing the Pleasant Street sidewalk, is that what's
Yeah, Pleasant Street, Gardner Perry Lane to Williams.
correct?
And
Yeah.
five corners towards Stop and Shop.
Correct. So the preliminary design, that we're in right now, I started in 2019 and obviously got delayed during the COVID, and we kind of resurrected that. It was to look at the different design alternatives for that corridor and Williams Lane corridor to see what the accommodations could be for bicyclists and pedestrians, whether it's a sidewalk that's next to the roadway or looking at a one-way configuration of all or portions of Pleasant Street and Williams Lane to see what those accommodations could be and what the impacts could be. The BPAC had actually just last week made a recommendation on a design alternative for those corridors. That'll go to the NPDC at their January meeting, and I'm sure it'll be sent to traffic safety, probably your committee. Essentially, they'll go to the select board, and I guess they'll determine which other committees want to inform their decision on that. But the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee did recommend that at least pilot a one-way option for Pleasant Street, and if that's just not feasible, a one-way configuration just not feasible because of the traffic impacts, then the preserving the two-way traffic flow and just simply providing at least a 5-foot wide sidewalk on Pleasant Street should be pursued, even though that had greater impacts to properties, to trees, to utilities, and had a higher cost. And with it didn't actually accommodate bicycle traffic. At least it would be some kind of benefit to those corridors with minimizing traffic impacts. So that's what BPAC recommended, and I'm sure it'll go through all the other channels as well to see what the preferred option is for the community.
At one point, back a couple of DPW folks ago, it was stated that the pool area at Four Corners was going to be tied into that whole project, and that was at the time the comment was they didn't want to do anything on the Five Corners towards Stop and Shop because eventually they're going to do something at Four Corners and also at Williams, putting a sidewalk down there, and so it was going to be all tied together. And so is that still the case, or are we doing this, are they going to break it out so that it's something actually gets done while we're all still able to drive and walk around ourselves.
Mike, I think I know where he's getting that from.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of different projects in the Mid-Island area. And I'm sure they'll be sequenced in some fashion. There's improvements along Sparks Avenue to widen that sidewalk out to hopefully accommodate bike traffic even better. I can't really comment about the intersection projects. I mean, those are we have recommendations for those intersections, and I just don't think the appetite's there yet for advancing those. So I can't really comment on the intersection portions of those, but at least the corridors themselves, like I said, we're in the design, a preliminary design phase for Pleasant Street and Williams Lane. We have some concepts for Sparks Avenue as well to widen that path out. So, I mean, they're in the design stage, and I would assume those get implemented sometime over the next year or 2 or 3. But like I said, we're still kind of in the early design phases for those.
Mike Lee, every time I walk to town meeting from Five Corners, I live on New Street, so that's the way I walk there. I keep thinking the Atlantic Avenue sidewalks or sidewalk, because there's only one on one side of the street, really need help.
Trees, poles.
And I'm gonna
It's super
punt
bad today.
Right now.
to Drew. Drew, are you familiar with it? We're supposed to have a meeting, I guess, to
That
discuss.
road is substandard with.
Yeah, and that's, I actually, of all things, not that up to speed on every detail of the sewer project that's happening there, but I thought Atlantic Ave sidewalks were a bid alternate as part of that project, so that they wouldn't be put back exactly as they were, they'd be put back better than they were. I could be wrong about that.
Gotta move the curb on the other side of the street towards their property more.
Yeah,
Get the road
and I know
wide.
that I think there's no water improvements, but there's gravity sewer, force main and drainage improvements, so that whole area probably, if you go down Sparks and take a right and look at the edge, they've already disturbed the edge of the road to get the force main in, so I would imagine that it'll be improved when they're done. If that's not the plan, it probably should be, because there's no better time to do that than now.
Can't have another prospect.
That's my understanding of it.
Ed,
I am in complete concurrence on this, and while you're doing one thing, you should do as much as you can at the same time, rather than overlapping things. But I'd like to know that, and I'm gonna use the North Liberty Street sewer portion as an example. And the sidewalks go back on. You can make wall brick, okay? But going down North Liberty Street, you got paved, you have concrete, and they were replaced this way, and you have brick. So there was a time for uniformity and making this, if you're gonna put it back one way, and I know that asphalt's the cheapest solution sometimes. Are temporary sometimes, but sometimes it remains more permanent. But there's also like concrete, there's none, really, this is a.
And the pole.
Well,
And then-
One, that
so I
one pole.
do just want to go back to what I was saying earlier about competing ideologies and stuff. There's also times when, and I'm new to this, and I'm learning more about it every day. You say, we really should just go to all brick, and they say, well, no, there's a historic component to the concrete here, or the stones there.
No.
So that's one thing. The other thing is, and I wholeheartedly do believe in, though, if you're gonna rip up a road and make sewer or water improvements, you should be doing the other if you weren't planning on it, and it needs to be done, and improving the curbing and the sidewalk and other things. With that being said, when money is appropriated for water and sewer projects, if there's not enough money to do DPW projects, they're just gonna do the water and sewer because it's critical. And so when we can, we would love to piggyback on that effort, but as far as Pleasant and then Sparks and Five Corners and Four Corners in Atlantic and the rotary that's right out here. Yes, it might make sense to do all of them at once, except when it grows into a $37 million project, people don't have an appetite, then we get nothing done. And that's another thing that can be tough, because they do spiral out of control pretty quickly, and then it becomes far too big of a bite to take.
So, Drew, I knew this was gonna happen when you came to this meeting. Like, we're so far, we've become the select board, the planning board, the HDC, sewer commission, and the right of way. And it's just inevitable, so don't be upset, it's just part of it. Best sidewalk on the island that happened by itself that no one knows how is that little piece of brick Like when you're going up York Street, up West York. That barn building on the right, check that out. It's got a berm. You can bump up, down, beautiful, all brick, nice. But he's talking about on North Liberty is 100% right, but you almost have to have a person that gets every little aspect of this island's little nuance to be with the contractor. To figure out, don't put new curbing over here, like they did on Liberty Street, not North Liberty. When the first project came in, they took out some concrete curbing that was back when Matty Jacob was running things. I mean, this is a long time ago, because I already asked Jack Gavner about all this stuff before. And they put 2 pieces of brand new curbing on Liberty Street. No, find some used curbing somewhere. Don't put new, it stands out like it's got lights on, but nobody was saying anything about that. And once that goes in, it's not coming back out. I think that's what Ed's talking about, like that small stuff.
Yeah.
Well, tires have to go up on the curb over here. Let's lower this curb down 2 inches or something. They just, like they're gonna do on Gardner. I wanted to bring that up, but not get into a conversation. I know that they're finally fixing some of Gardner Street, just lower the curb. You don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to widen the road, just make it so you can pop up on the sidewalk without, you can't do it anymore, right? They lowered the road. They never put the last base coat on it. It made it even worse, right? But anyway,
We're getting to it.
it's not like when you talk about a street like Atlantic, that the real Atlantic that you're talking about, not Surfside side. That road is, I don't even know how to even describe. That's like Gardner Street straight. Like it's not wide enough for 2 cars to pass and repass in certain spots. But what do you do? Look at the trees. It's like Pleasant. It's like that section of Pleasant that it's 2-way, but it really isn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there isn't a perfect answer. I think the curb needs to go push back on the McGrady side of the road. And then you'll get that extra 1.5 that you need to kind of fix the sidewalk on the other side. That'd be my suggestion, just as a
Yeah.
person that puts 75 miles a day on a vehicle.
Yeah, no, and
That's
that's, we talk about this all the time, Mike and I
You know,
and others.
little stupid stuff.
Yeah,
It's not a
but
big
even
deal.
even Atlantic though, if we got tree advisory committee and roads and right of way committee and traffic safety committee and the board of
I know
sewer
you're gonna say.
commissioners all in meeting,
And then
nobody would agree on what we should do, you know?
But I mean, it's, okay.
No, I'm just saying that's a reality, right? You have an unstoppable force, which is the growth of this island and these immovable objects
This
is how
was
we.
a problem when
you
there
know.
was half the people.
No.
It's not any different.
And
That's
Yeah,
stuff I don't.
I know, I'm
That's
just
the old
saying,
days.
you know.
The old days, the way they fixed the sidewalk was, I know, because I did mine and part of my neighbors just out.
Did it yourself?
Is it was asphalt, jackhammer it up, and then the town gave us, give me
Yeah.
one pallet of bricks for.
That got brought up
Or
before.
4 pallet of bricks.
That got brought up on Prospect.
And I had a guy do it on my dime and made it a little wider so my kids.
So, we're gonna move on because still got another big topic to cover. So is it fair to say that, you can review the stuff that's flagged there and anything else on that list that
Sure.
you feel like, contributing to or whatever, and then we'll update that. Hopefully we can carve some of this down a bit. We've taken out, the section, that previously was in there about the downtown sidewalks between Quince and Gay and, down center in front of the Methodist Church and stuff, that we've been carrying that for a couple of years, so we just pull that out because of the ongoing work that's happening there.
Well, that section in front of the Methodist Church was done last winter.
Yeah, but we never pull it off our list, so
Well,
so we need to get our stuff squared away.
And, I mean, this is the continuing thing. I mean, at one point, Libby told us on Center Street in front of the Seven Seas, said it was none of our business. So as I said, you two guys need to sit down with Libby and say, what is, in your mind, what is our job? Otherwise, we're all, you know.
That's why I gingerly brought it
Yeah,
all.
but I
together.
think you two
agree.
guys, I think what the problem was is when you tried to do that, Libby misunderstood your memo, thinking you were focusing on a specific
Yeah.
situation. This is a broader thing. Libby, what do you think our job is? Because she's the one, I think at the end of the day, is the final arbiter. We can all talk among ourselves.
Right.
But she's the final arbiter, and we ought to know what she thinks our job is.
like a survey of the different committees that kind of are familiar with.
But,
That's what I was looking at.
otherwise, I mean, maybe this list is a lot shorter than it is already.
So anyway, and we'll copy you in all ongoing meetings, the way we're copying Mike and if I see something that's coming up that I figure is in your wheelhouse, I'll give you a heads up, but if you see something that, I made a mistake or didn't think of, and, you can always drop in like Mike does and go out. You can turn your camera off and finish your game of hearts or.
Well, also maybe you see every once in a while things that you might think it's in our wheel.
Yeah,
So we need to look at.
So thank you for coming.
Go Bill.
Yeah,
There is one other significant issue that we haven't talked about. We don't need to talk about it, except for me to say to Drew that we maintain a list of potential road takings. And the list has,
Yep.
by the action of takings, Amelia Boulevard and so forth, has reduced in size, but there are still a few, particularly Wynn Street and Allen, what else? Because I didn't pull it up in front of me. But there are 2 or 3 streets. Drew, I'll send you a copy of our list.
Well, that would be great. I was actually involved very minimally, but WPI, I must have GPI, they're our consultant. WPI did a project recently and presented on Eel Point Road and maintenance and sustainability and erosion and things on Eel Point Road. There was more or less, not erosion, but the
You can't drive-
degradation
You're
of the
never
road.
gonna be able to drive all the way through.
They did eventually talk about
With what kind of
that the pond and North Shore are gonna be, connected.
You remind me, the only part of Lawrence Road that is public is the section from the intersection with Eel Point out to the water, and it's unpaved. The paved portion is private. It's been a thorn in the side of the people in Fisher's Landing for a decade or more. So, but you'll see all that when I send you.
But anyways, in talking about, road takings, they had the question that I didn't have an answer to, which is why is Eel Point public to a certain point and then private the rest of the way, especially with.
1,000 roads like that here.
Oh, yeah, it's not like, that's what it is.
Gardner
Yeah,
Road doesn't exist either.
But I had heard that at some point that was on a list and higher up on a priority, and then the road had fallen down the priority list. And I'm not,
It doesn't need.
I'm just mentioning that I understand that
Agreement
there's
about
always
improvement
moving and
with the
shaking.
people, with the Frost family, you have to talk, there's some stuff, I have to
Yeah.
do some digging and have somebody find this agreement. There's an agreement was made a while ago to not like fix the road.
Yeah.
But it's also, as Alan will say, notice where the telephone poles are, way out in the, wherever they are.
Mhm.
That road needs bike path. Doesn't need the road fix, needs bike path someday.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to say a paved bike path on a dirt road, but that's the right thing on that road.
okay.
You're never gonna make that road be
Yeah.
improved to
And
that level.
And I definitely don't need
Blow
you
the gas,
to
get
follow
out.
up and give me the history of it. It was just an interesting question. I understand there's a lot of roads like that.
Yes,
I did the sewer project on Friendship and Somerset, and it brought up the whole history of Somerset and that's private and the drainage issues, and so I get it.
should have been.
And I think that those
before.
are obviously things that this committee really should be championing,
Okay,
the
so we're
study
gonna-
of and.
We gotta move on in order to get through the rest of the agenda here, so. If you want to get back to us, if you want to check out the
Yep.
Surfside stuff. As far as lower hanging fruit, that's probably on our list, one of the ones that's more doable, as is the markers out in off of Baxter. And we haven't figured out what we're gonna do about the surface mount. We don't know. We don't have a budget. We don't have a staff. We don't have, all we got is ideas, complaints and issues.
I got budget and staff, so
Yeah.
see what we can do to help.
So
That's an important point, though. We are an advisory committee to the select board.
Mhm.
We're appointed by the select board and we give them advice.
Yeah.
And over the years, they've been pretty responsive to, we'll bring up an issue and they'll address it and so on. But it's gotten a lot more confusing. There are a lot more people having their voices heard on these issues and so on. So.
All right, so, great, thank you.
Thanks, yes.
Thank you.
So we'll move along to chapter 91. I had sent out, and actually it's in the agenda, the query that I sent to DEP about the application at 44 to 46 Eastern Street. We submitted a comment letter, which I included in the agenda, and what I received yesterday as a follow-up to that. And what I'll do is I'll send this follow-up to you just so you can include it in the minutes. But I asked for a status from the gentleman at DEP about the status of that application, and because he had told me that once we had submitted a comment, the applicant was required to respond to that. And so I was unsure how we were going to get it, since we don't have a mailbox at Town Hall. And when I called and asked about that, they said, well, maybe they'll send it to Concom or where. So I'm not really confident that that we'll ever get anything. So which is why I contacted this gentleman from DEP, and
Thanks for coming.
so he responded back that the DEP is no longer holding any additional hearings on the application. The applicant is in receipt of our public comments, and they have not yet responded. They're required to do so and copy us on their response. Once they provide the DEP with a written response, then the department will consider our comments, their responses, when they're drafting the decision. And it'll come in the form of a written determination of Chapter 91 license. And it'll then have a 21-day appeal period, and we will be copied on their decision. So I think this is probably the first time that we actually have correspondence back from the DEP that we've asked questions, and so we talked about having a Chapter 91 folder on our site. And so to me, this would seem like a logical thing. Within that folder, we have 44 to 46 Eastern Street, and we put the documents in there that pertain to it, and somebody will be able to find it going forward. So I've tossed that out to see what your thoughts are, and that's it. Alan?
Yeah. So, I got the emails,
Yeah.
about the emails. And I guess the next thing is to wait for whatever the
Right.
response, then we can respond to the response that
Right.
we get from the owner. But other than that, they had no information as to what it is. There's gonna be a document that spells out what it is that they're asking for the Chapter 91. And that's what went to, this board.
Yeah. So I haven't.
There is a document. Here's a document for sure. It shows the 5-foot way and all this other thing.
It shows a layout, yeah.
And a lot of it's because of not only the improvements to the original Auburn cottage that's sitting there, but the fact that they subdivided the property as well. And they're gonna be doing something on the other lot of the property, but they still are keeping this public right away as part of it. So at least they're going through the process. correctly.
On this email you sent, did we discuss this in one of our meetings, the points that we wanted to make in this email?
No, what
Or
happened?
was that the chairman's,
Well, what happened was, we were notified of a request for comments. After our meeting, and
Oh.
3 weeks before, and in typical, we had a day to respond.
okay,
And so, I figured something was better than nothing,
okay.
and I.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah, so,
The November 22nd, the public response, yeah.
yeah,
Well,
so,
I think that would be nice if, when we see their response to our response, we as a committee get to kick it around a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
so rather than have this languish in my file at home, what do you think about this being the first? This project, if you will, being the first 91 project that we have posted on roads and right of ways. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
And whatever documents that we've gotten so far, there's been a couple of different layouts, and the last one is the one that included the 5-foot right of way.
Well, and we're gonna have signage.
Yeah, and so be interesting to see the response, what kind of signage, I'm sure they don't want one, but.
Yeah. Presumably Jeff Carlson would have whatever the application. Whatever they applied for. And that seems to be the missing piece. We have no idea what they are, what they've applied for or what they're asking for in terms of the public access part of it.
Does anybody remember, there was a lady that from DEP that said she was gonna copy us with stuff? Do you remember we talked about that? I was gonna, if I can dredge that up, I wanted to follow up with her and say,
I'm not sure if it's a lady or a man, but there's someone that said something like that.
somebody said, oh yeah, we can get all that, and it might have been the commercial wharf discussion with the Mickey Rowan cottage and all that.
Oh, yeah, that was a whole other issue. I don't think there was chapter 91 involved with that.
Well, there wasn't anyone. Yeah, we got asked to comment on that the day of also.
Is that Mary Longacre?
No,
Oh,
no, this is from DEP.
That was the petrol landing. So we're
Yeah.
talking about the petrol, when they removed the cottage and.
It was the hearing to
Move one of the cottages.
take down Mickey's house.
yeah.
And the comment was about putting it on the NAR property. So there was a hearing and that.
I've got a name here, Carlos Regatta. Oversees Chapter 91 Environmental Analyst of DEP.
Okay.
Oh.
I'm gonna try to scour my email.
FRAGATA, Carlos. He was on one of those calls that we had.
I suspect they got applied to.
That was, would you like the date? That was on March 24th of 21.
That's when we did that meeting of something special, yeah.
And then Stephen McKenna, who's the Cape and Islands Regional Coordinator.
Right.
I remember that day.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll see if I can find that because it's,
Well, we should have, if we're gonna put it on the website, we ought to have the original
well,
application.
and whatever we can get for
Hmm.
documents, it doesn't really matter.
I emailed you one time the original application back.
Yeah.
To this, the original application, this project back on, they had a deadline on April 20th of 2022.
Yeah.
But then this is an update to the
Right.
thing, so then we've never seen the update that they're proposing, except for the description of the wall.
All right.
So. If I hold the other one to fall to,
Well, I see Jeff Carlson every 2 weeks with our harbor plan meeting, so I can ask him.
Oh.
I suspect the right of way sign will be something along the lines of the one at the Great RV Yacht Club, as you see that little, or near the Dreamland, that little flags you see there. That you, if you didn't know what you were looking for, you wouldn't know what you were looking for.
Yeah.
Well, there's another one between North Wharf and Stray Wharf, between the cottages there.
Well, and down, even down past that project next to the beach. There's one down there.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay, so I will, I'll try to track that down. Anybody have any new items?
No, I just appreciate the conversation today, Bill. I know it was a little loose, but with that guy here, it's really important that we all got to kind of engage with him, because he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
This guy is good. He lives here, coaches soccer. I just wanted to say that because I just found that out myself. I didn't know that either. Like, that's a big deal to find something like this.
another thing we are.
Unusual.
We
Does
are,
he have housing?
maybe is.
Yeah, he's got a place to live. Yeah. I don't know where he
Maybe we
lives,
ought to
but he
make-
does have house.
The other
We ought to
thing,
make a list of all the committees that could be overlapping
Yeah,
and who they are, because I mean, at the very least, sometimes you can have a listening post. Let's say on like Andy like the streets of sidewalk and a handicap.
the other thing
Even if you can't open your mouth, you can at least know what's going on.
the other thing I've actually skirted over, it's on the agenda just for informational update to the board and anybody that drops in on this meeting after the fact. It's kind of interesting if you go on the YouTube, town's YouTube channel and look at all of the hearings and stuff. And you go back on and you can see all these different committees and how many times they've been viewed. It's interesting.
not enough.
No, far more than
Really?
I thought.
I wouldn't, I don't look at that, but
If-
I
I went
just
on,
would have guessed.
I went on a couple of weeks ago and I looked and there was like. One of our meetings was 45 times it had been viewed and I'm thinking,
They can tell you whether it's a unique view or just someone that's.
yeah, there's somebody that kept going, I can't believe they said that. But anyway, the October 27th Bluff Walk update that Alan, Ed, Snooki and I did, and we were starting to identify encroachments. Ed's got more data than he knows what to do with and trying to make it so that it's cohesive enough that we can follow it.
I'm gonna
And
try to do it in the facts that we went. We went kind of property to property, but obviously we skipped some properties that we didn't have any issues with, but I'm gonna try to identify each property and figure out like, was this okay, what was wrong, root, encroachment, something like that, at least we know. There's a couple of obvious people we're gonna have to send spanking letters to, or letters and, I should say, notification of encroachment.
we can also,
Get your steps off the town property.
Those three obvious, I think they know that they're encroaching.
we can also incorporate the study that was done several years ago on all the steps that are there. And as we did the walk, we noted which steps had private signs on and which steps did not. So, it's going to be we're going to add it to our list here, and it's probably going to be one of the more long-term items on the list because it's going to take a while. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion about it once it comes to light that we're trying to clean that up a bit.
Right, we're gonna find them out and then have to be here to safety. Everybody's gonna yell at us,
Yeah.
but we're not.
Anybody have anything else?
Just
No,
one comment on at wanting the hydrants moved. They can't be moved. Mark and I have already looked into it. Because of the concrete barriers that they put the electric wires.
Which
in.
location was that?
I think it was Center Street.
Okay,
So that, I thought you could move it around the corner, is it?
We looked at it, but we can't because of the location of the main.
There's 3 parking spaces and the best loading on the aisle sitting right there.
Yep. But I still say wires belong up on those poles up there, not down in the
Well,
ground.
that's Snooki. You, we don't have enough, we have to like make the day longer. I agree with you, but it's a very hard thing to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
It's North Conway, you drive up there, they moved all the poles in the old North Conway town. Out of the sidewalks over to the edge of the sidewalk. How they did that, right of ways, takings, easements, paying people, whatever they did to do it, they did it. We just haven't done that here. We talk about going underground, it's never gonna happen. We need to move the poles to places where they work, and there's lots of them that are in good spots. The only reason they're there is because they got put there 100 and something years ago and no one said anything. They just were there, like it's not so somebody was smarter, they just happened to put them there.
And they kept the buildings back away from them.
Well, I'm just saying, whatever the reason is, and the layout of these roads, 1799 layouts, create all these problems to fix this stuff.
Well, I know you like that pole that's right there when North Liberty
Yeah.
comes up to Gardner and about
Yeah.
to take a left at one, everybody has to go out this way around it.
I mean, the one at Main across from the monument, taking a right on Gardner, that curving got fixed. It was worse before. It was, you know what I mean? Like there was an improvement there. You just wouldn't know it was that bad before.
All right,
So anyway,
Bill, I have one question.
Ed, go ahead.
It's not quite old business, but it's an old question. You know, you brought up something, early November about, the port gang, say, on Bosworth. About the path out there on Bosworth, Winoma.
Oh, yeah.
Was there any response, what happened? Because I know the guy kept referring to it as his yard, and crossing our property, but it really is never his yard, or was it his property?
So when I responded back to him,
And it's
to the
out for
gentleman.
sale, so he's trying to.
yeah, that first off, I said, I imagine you already have an attorney, and I was surprised when he said no. Which I thought that was a little odd. But I said, before any decision, certainly no decisions coming out of this committee. But there are things to consider, such as deeded rights from your neighbors. The fact that there's an LLC that owns the steps at the end of Bosworth down under the beach. Who knows what rights they have down there, and so. I didn't even get into the fact that, I heard it was for sale, so. Anyway, that's sort of like gone away, and
They're gonna leave it to the person who buys the property to fight the battle.
yeah, I think so.
And the other one that I don't want to totally drop is that, Jefferson, that piece on Jefferson, where the town's only took it to the paving, but not all the way to.
Sure.
I'm not gonna use the nickname that it's used.
Sure. Yeah.
But between the cliffside and.
Oh,
beach
yeah.
and all. Because that's a very important way and a very important access, and again, if the owner on one side decides to close it off, the new owner, once the property sells, it could become quite an interesting issue.
So I asked, I passed along our query to, I think it was to Erica or whatever, and so folks came back and they said, we think that was taken. Back to the question of,
Only taken to the.
was it taken just to the pavement or was it taken to the water?
I think it was taken to the water because they made it a public way when they installed the underwater cable.
Snooky, that's what brought up part of my question is that I know the property owners there got paid from
Exactly.
National Grid.
Right.
So why would they get paid
Yeah.
for?
Yeah,
And National Grid was paying them for the rights to cross their. So I'm
Yeah.
not so sure that was.
And they probably got paid twice.
They did get paid twice, I hear. And the payment was something like $300,000 to $400,000 each.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a small check.
So, that's something we might want to put on our takings
I mean,
list
I just
question.
recently dealt with something you never think about, and I won't go into the details, obviously, because a lot of them are private anyway, but Dearmore Road, had some issues with the taking of Dearmore Road. And I mean, roads that you think, and the town's been using forever, that all of a sudden you find out there's oh, by the way, this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has a problem in 1979.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
Witness.
You asked at the last meeting about any roads in Sconset that should be taken as public ways. Bunker Hill Road. It's right on the top of the hill, Milestone Road to New Street,
Yes.
right where the brick building is for the telephone company.
Shell.
You're talking about
Leave it.
you're talking about the Milestone Road to the
Yeah.
street sections. Because wasn't there a question whether that was public, right?
Well, they're claiming that it's in a butter's way.
That's where, I wonder what that portion is. It might,
Andrew would have to book into this. Somebody's.
and I know the other part's not, because you said there was a water main there and things like that.
Well, I don't know anything.
Wasn't that a school? That building,
What?
school.
Firehouse, yeah.
Fire station, yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking of the other, the little,
No.
okay. You would
And the
know.
one that was
Yeah.
a school before that one is Skip Boland's shop.
Oh, okay, down there.
Really?
Yeah. You
Right.
take a walk in there, take one look at the floor and it's a dead giveaway just the way that floor is.
So Rob, do you have anything, or Rick, before we wrap this up? You're muted, Rick.
No, I was just gonna say lots of good stuff today, so I appreciate the discussion.
And don't forget you in the street sidewalk, Rick, you know. Back in the early days, Rick.
The first one was 2009.
Are you sure it wasn't before that? It was a while ago. Dirk Roggebean walked with us, remember that?
I do.
Warm Road.
All right, so we have a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion to adjourn.
We have a second,
Second.
and by roll call, Alan Reinhardt,
Hi.
Lee Saperstein,
Aye.
Rick Atherton,
Aye.
Matt
All
Lowell,
right.
Bill Smith,
Aye.
Nelson Eldridge,
Aye.
Rob Randy,
Hi.
Bill Greeter, aye, and Lee, just for your records, Nat arrived about 4:03 and Ed arrived about 4:08.
Thank you, Bill. I got that. It may be a few days before I get draft minutes. I'll send them to you for corrections.
Okay,
We did not do minutes for approval for this meeting.
I
No.
thought I asked if I missed that.
so let's,
Do you want to do that now or all your stuff?
Well, I don't know, did we see minutes?
well, that was one of the questions, so.
We
So-
did see minutes, but they were longer than October minutes, so they look like, because. of the
Uh,
last- I brought a list.
You've had minutes all along. Bill, you skipped over that one, approval of minutes.
Yeah, there was a October 31st, was that the last one?
We didn't even have it in our agenda.
No, I forget it.
Next
So-
meeting we'll do too.
Okay,
What was it again?
Next meeting we'll do two.
Okay,
I
so
was wondering why I missed it in that 8 minutes, I was late, that's why I didn't say anything.
missing minutes from, so there'll be two meetings.
Stucky, what did you say about school?
Okay,
Road?
all right, so we
Well, I
have
said
a motion to vote, it's all been accepted.
Sidewalk on the Swamp
Meeting is
Road.
adjourned, thank you very much.
Do I need to do
Goodbye
anything?
all.
hey, Snooky, that's not even funny.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, there was a big
So
stick
was that
going
Rick?
on out there.
Do I need to vet this on?
Oh,
We still have to record and
Take care of it.
Yeah.
Have to turn it
Oh,
out.
yeah, Bill's gonna turn it off.
It's,
I gotta shut down the
And this
recording.
Kaufman was on the board. So like,
Talking about peripheral things, it might not be.
House
Oh, you
out
do.
there, that's his
Yeah.
old house. 'Cause I heard that from somebody.
So, Bill, do you want me to talk to Jeff Carlson, or do you want to?
There or something.
That'd be great if you could, yeah.
Somebody told me that.
Yeah. Then you cut this off.
That sounded, is he a builder?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he's a builder, he's not.
Talk to me on.
That's
No,
more.
that was a relation.
I'll get it going.